Pete with Pathways to Aviation, talking about networking and specifically the networking experience. Networking happens every day in a multitude of situations and locations. And there are three basic settings, right? So it takes place socially. You might be in line at a grocery store or a coffee shop or at the airport. Certainly the career-focused area, and that's job interviews and career fairs. And then, as we'll focus on with this video, the professional networking reception, typically tied to a local business or an industry organization like membership associations, conventions, that sort of thing. That's where we're going to place ourselves right now, the on-site networking reception experience. Keep in mind that the elements I'm about to share can all be utilized through a virtual or online format. So you enter the networking reception. There are 8 elements for you to be aware of. And not just be aware of, but really recognize so that you can use them to your advantage. So as you step in, the first thing you're going to do, you're going to scope the room. You're going to see the people. You're going to look at the walls, the floors. You're going to take a snapshot of the sound level, the smell. All that, all within 3 or 4 seconds. And then you're going to identify your escape routes. Yes, your escape routes. And there are like 5 of them. The first one is the door that you just walked in. You can always leave, right? No shame, you can always leave. That's escape route number 1. The second, identify any familiar faces. They might be in groups, standing alone. Just quickly identify them. The third, know where the restroom is located. The fourth, similarly, find where the refreshments or the food's located. And the fifth, see were there any displays. There might be like a silent auction, there might be memorabilia, there might be signups, there might be something going on. See if any displays exist. Those are your escape routes. You can go to them anytime if you want to get out of conversations. But keep in mind, even if you try to bail, you might have to engage in a conversation. So just keep that in mind. So you just scope the room. Second is like that initial sight. Person or persons see you, or you look onto the crowd to identify where you're going to go. Okay? Now, if they see you, think no further because they're approaching you, they're going to engage in conversation. But if you're doing the one approaching, you have an opportunity, a decision to make. Do you freeze? Do you bail? Or do you proceed? Okay? Now, we're going to assume that you proceed, that you're going to approach the room. You have another decision to make. You can swing for a base hit by targeting your eyes and your body to familiar faces. You can engage in conversations with them, kind of build confidence, get a feel for the room and the aura, the environment. The people around you might become easier to pass. That's okay. Easy base hit. Or you can swing for the fence and target somebody with whom you've never met. Okay? Now, it's a risk. You don't know how the conversation's going to go. You don't know what's going on. But if it's a success, that person's going to look at you and say, wow, this person took the initiative to come talk to me. That is pretty amazing. That's a great soft skill. Now, as you approach, whomever you're approaching, quickly and not obviously, take a look to see what emblem they may be wearing on their shirt or blouse, whatever, dress. Take a look. It could be the organization they're representing or like a ball club, usually. Okay, and then look at the name tag. It could be here, it could be here. Look for their first and last name, their employer, what have you. Now, don't use that information yet. Just look, okay? The fourth element, the fourth part, is that greeting. Extend your hand and shake it. Good eye contact, firm handshake, or it's a knuckle bump. Or it's just good eye contact and an exchange. In that exchange, you just keep it simple. Hi, my name is Pete Parker. I am the Executive Director of Pathways to Aviation. And the other person may say, Wow, Pete, it's great to meet you. My name is John Smith. I'm the CEO of XYZ Incorporated. You can keep it simple. You don't have to slam in with your elevator pitch. Just say hello, but you're giving it a little bit more juice by mentioning the organization that you're representing. Now, if it's not your employer, you can say you're representing a nonprofit or your school or whatever it is that you're representing at this. Or if you're a part of this organization that's hosting the event, you can share your role with the organization. Very simple. The fifth element is the conversation, the one that everybody freaks out or gets nervous about. You don't have to, because ultimately you're just making friends. But it's the conversation, and the first thought that triggers in your head is, oh my gosh, what do I say? And it's typically followed by, well, who goes first? Now, discussions, one person's talking, the other person's listening. That's normal, but it's not necessarily a tennis match. So there's no rule as to who's going to serve first. And just because you may have introduced yourself first doesn't mean that they couldn't introduce themselves and then begin the conversation. So there's no real rule. What you might think about doing is just after you've exchanged the greetings, pause for a second. And if they don't jump in, take the initiative and begin the conversation. Simple trick, especially if you're intimidated or nervous, ask them to share something about themselves. So, Joe or John, tell me about yourself. Or what are you here today for? Or I'd like to get to know you better. Then they'll share. Now, they may not share the elevator pitch. Totally fine. They might just share small talk or whatever. So you have a choice to make. You can either mirror what they say and say something similar, or you could just shoot for it and share your elevator pitch. That's your choice. But the most important tip to networking, listen. Let them share. And when they pause for a moment, give it a second longer, because they could be in between thoughts. You don't want to just jump in or react. So let them share, and then when it feels natural, you jump in. But remember, listen. And as you're listening, look for any commonalities, whether they're personal or professional. It could be similar hobbies, interests, similar employers, similar specialties within an industry. Just look for those commonalities. And when you share, now you have something that you can talk about. If you don't share your elevator pitch, you can talk about the commonalities that that person has shared. Very simple, very easy, okay? Or you could share your elevator. Or at some point in the conversation, you will share elevator pitches. Because some of you may say, well, why are you here today? Or what are you hoping to accomplish? You can share your elevator. And then a discussion ensues. And it becomes very natural. But I have 5 don'ts that you need to remember. The first, do not look at your watch. You already knew the time of the event, when it starts, when it ends. There's no need to look at your watch. Are you going to time this networking experience, this one discussion? No. Don't look at your watch. Also, do not look at your phone. Put it on silent, slide it in your pocket or your purse, and leave it alone. There's no reason to pull it out. The third is do not appear disinterested. When you go to networking receptions, or even if you're in line somewhere, you're representing your brand. And if you appear disinterested, it's going to be a poor reflection on your brand, on you. Don't do that. And similarly, no negative talk. Don't say anything negative about anybody, any person, the weather. Be positive. There's no better reputation than a positive reputation. If they say, wow, Pete is so positive, oh my gosh, is that a negative? No. So keep everything positive. Even if you're thinking a certain way, leave it in your brain. And the fifth is don't interrupt. You don't want to end the person's conversation. It happens a lot, and you will be interrupted. So knowing that you shouldn't do it, just be prepared that if it happens to you, you just kind of brush it off. It's okay. Those are my 5 don'ts with the conversation. Now, I've positioned the conversation in such a way where it's very achievable. That's all it has to be. Just keep it simple. That's the 5th element. The 6th is as the conversation is starting to wane or you're running out of material, or it's been too long, without looking at your watch, just start to wrap it up. And there's an easy way to do that. You can say, John, I really enjoyed talking to you, blank. I really enjoyed talking to you about, I really enjoyed sharing ideas. I really enjoyed learning more about. It's simple. That's all you have to say, okay? And then that might spark a little bit of conversation, but it's usually, that's it. Identify a next step. So you could say, hey, let's grab a coffee, or let's jump on a Zoom call, or let's, schedule a meeting to discuss this idea. Okay, that's a next step. And if there's no next step, it's all good. You can simply say, I look forward to seeing you at the next networking reception. Totally simple. Exchange cards. Now, don't exchange cards for the sake of exchanging cards. If you don't want the card, don't take the card, don't offer. If you're offered to take a card, grab one out of your pocket or your purse to offer your own card. Always bring a batch of cards with you. The rule of thumb I was taught was bring 50. Yes, it's a lot, but you never know how many people you're going to talk to. And I've been in group settings where every person in that group wanted my business card. So be prepared. Okay? That's it. Now, you've wrapped, but you haven't closed yet, which is the 7th part. You're going to close, and there are a couple ways to do that. The first is you can pass. If it's a one-on-one discussion, somebody may enter your one-on-one just to be standing next to you, or it's a person familiar with you or the person with whom you're speaking. You can pass that person on. So can the other person you're talking to. John can pass that person on to me. Pete, I'd like you to meet so-and-so. All right? Now, if you are the one doing the passing, remember the person's name and preferably the organization they're representing to the person that you're going to pass over to. Okay? That's important. If you have to cheat and just kind of do a glimpse of their name tag, that's fine. Don't make it obvious. Passing is great. Passing does a couple things. One is it gets you out of the conversation. The second is if that is a good match, you're going to receive thank yous from both those individuals. Because remember, networking is a two-way street. You're not just there to gain for yourself. You're there to provide value. So if you can pass, you can connect two people, and there's a win, there's a success with those two people, it's because of you. And they will never forget that. So keep that in mind. Good passing opens many doors. Okay? Now, as you close, say thank you. Always say thank you. John, thank you very much. That's it. That's all you have to do. And then you part ways. Now, as you part ways, you have that person's card, or you have a piece of paper in your back pocket and a pen. Write down a note about that conversation. It could be the name and just a commonality or an idea or the next meeting date. Write those down. Do not type them into your phone. That's going to make you appear like you're disinterested. Just write down on a piece of paper or on the back of the business card. Very simple. Cite in your pocket, move on. Okay? The 8th element I call the reconnect. Now, the reconnect can actually happen at the same networking reception. And there are two ways. One is accidental. You're in line to get a drink. You're in line to get food. You're looking at the displays. You went to the restroom. You're in the hallway. It just happens. In that case, say, wow, I really enjoyed that conversation. Wow, I can't wait till we talk again. Very simple. Or it's intentional because you have met somebody else and it might trigger a commonality from that initial conversation or an idea. And you want to go back to John, that person with whom you already spoke, and say, wow, hey, I want to share this with you. Very simple. You don't have to engage in elevator pitches all over again. It's a reconnect. And then following the reception, either that night or the next day, within 24 hours, send an email. Thank you very much for the conversation. I really enjoyed getting to know you, learning about sharing this idea. I look forward to our next visit, whether it's a structured, scheduled meeting or it's a networking reception that could be down the road. And if you're not connected on LinkedIn, just connect with that person on LinkedIn. Again, share a specific message as you connect. Don't just click connect. So I hope what I've shared helps ease your mind a little bit about networking. You're just there. It doesn't have to be so intimidating and scary. And it's important to remember that many of the people in that same room are just as nervous and intimidated as you. My name is Pete Parker. I'm the Executive Director at Pathways to Aviation. And I hope that these networking tips can really help elevate your networking experience.